Alright guys, so this video is going to show you guys how to install and get started on Python on Windows. Process is going to be similar in some aspects, different in others if you're on Mac or Linux. So there's a couple different ways you can install Python on a Windows machine. Easiest is probably to go to the Windows store, click Get, there you go, it's installed. See the Python roller coaster down here. You go to the python.org website, click on Download, and install that. And install now. Cool. There you go. You got Python now. The way that I would probably recommend it though is just to use VS Code. And so VS Code, I call it VS Code instead of Visual Studio Code because Microsoft has a different product called Visual Studio, which is completely unrelated to VS Code. And so I don't like calling it Visual Studio for that reason, because people think it's Visual Studio, which is a different product entirely. So VS Code, you can download it here. And when you get it installed, then there we go. There's Python roller coaster. Here we go. Come on, Python, you can do it. There we go. Setup successful. Neat. But once you get it installed, you just launch VS Code and right here. And so I just opened up a .py file. Py is the extension for a Python file. So you just make a blank file on your, like a text file on your desktop. I'll show you how to do that if you don't know how to do it. So make a new text document, call it like bob.py with the roller coaster going in the background. Hope you don't get motion sickness for that. So just rename it to bob.py, open it up. And then when you open it up in Visual Studio, it'll ask you, do you wish to install the Python language? You hit yep. And then it'll come over here and install it. And it'll take a few seconds. And then when you're done, you're all good to go. So that's three different ways you can install Python. One is using the Microsoft Store. One is using this just generic download from python.org. And the third is using VS Code, which is the way I'd probably recommend it for people that are starting off, because if you want to see what it looks like to use Python without VS Code, it's going to look like you're hacking into the NSA, and people will be they'll think you're a hacker, because this is what it looks like, right? And so this is too difficult for a lot of people, so we can launch NeoVim here and go to insert mode and do stuff like that. But if you're just starting, I would just recommend using VS Code. It's easy. So there's also a Python debugger you might want to install that comes with it. Cool. All right, so let's go back to the file. Let's see. Desktop, there we go. Desktop Pi, there we go. Okay, so here is a little sampled Python program, prints the numbers from 1 to 100. And so if you want to run this program, okay, you want to run this program, you just hit this and hit run like that. And then down here in the terminal, it will give you the output. Okay. And that's basically all there is to it. And so it's doing some stuff here, but basically you just hit run, and then it will it'll run your code. Simple as that. All right, so I paused it for a second because it was installing some stuff, but yeah, basically you have to run without debugging, and then boom, you can see it prints out the numbers from 1 to 100. If I want to change this to something smaller, numbers from 1 to 5, maybe, save it, hit run, and pull this little window up here, and you can see it just prints out the numbers from 1 to 5. So, what kinds of things do you do in Python? The most basic thing you can do with Python is make a variable. So for example, I can say x is equal to 5. And that makes a variable named x, and its value is 5. And I can make a variable named y and set it equal to x plus 2. Sure, why not? And then I can print. Thank you, Copilot. Very cool. That's what I was going to do, Copilot. Thank you. Then you hit run, and you can see here, prints out the value 7. So one of the most basic things you do with Python is just use it as a calculator. So you can make some variables, set them equal to each other. What kinds of mathematical operations can you do? There's addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division. But there's also modulus, which is something that people starting off in computer science don't really know that much about. Ada, do you remember long division? Way back in 4th grade, ages ago. Daughter's in the background there. Also got a cat right here. So if we say x is equal to 10 plus 2, and we want to print the value of x, Ada, what is that going to print to the screen? What is 10 plus 2? 12. 12 is correct. What about 10 minus 2? What is that going to print? 8. Let's find out. Faster than computer. Good job, girl. What about 10 times 2? Times is with the asterisk key. Ada, what is 10 times 2? 20. Good. And what about 10 divided by 2?
What?
10 divided by 2. 5. All right.
I'm playing a wool pop right now.
You're playing Pal World. Now, you might notice we got 5.0 down here. This is because Python, by default, uses what's called floating point division, which means you get decimals. So, Ada, what is 11 divided by 2?
5.5.
Good job, girl. 5.5 it is. So if you want integer division, which means if you remember whole division, like a long division, you get whole numbers, right? With a remainder. So if you say, what is 11? How many times is 2 divided into 11, Ada? How many times is...
Oh my gosh.
Ada, how many times is 2 divided into 11? No. Long division. When you do the long, like the little thing. Do you remember long division?
Yeah.
Little thing. So divides in 5 times with the remainder of 3. How many times is 2 divided into 11? Yes, 1. Yes, good. So if we say that and we say y is equal to 11 modulus 2, modulus is with the percentage sign. That's the remainder. And so the double slash here means, zoom in a little bit maybe, the double slash means it is integer division, which means you get whole numbers. Okay, you're not going to get a decimal if you have 2 slashes there. Okay. And then the modulus gives you the remainder. So 2 slashes is integer division, 1 slash is floating point division. So let me show you guys the difference here. All right, so we got floating x here. And we got whole x here, and we got remainder here. Okay. So in Python, 1 slash is floating point division. In other words, you're going to get decimals. 2 slashes, you only get whole numbers. You get integer division. So 11 divided by 2 is 5, not 5.5. When you use 2 slashes like this. And then the modulus, the percentage sign, is the remainder. And so if we go ahead and save this and run it, you will see we get 5.5 when we do 11 divided by 2 with floating point arithmetic. We get 5 when we do whole integer division. And we get a remainder of 1 when we use the percentage sign, which it confuses people because they're used to percentage sign meaning percentage, but it doesn't. It means remainder in computer science. There's also exponentiation. Exponentiation, let's make a new variable named expo. Yeah, sure, whatever. Thank you. Very cool. Copilot. All right. So Ada, what is 2 to the 3rd power?
8.
We'll edit that in post.
Wow.
I'm not the one that said 6, girl. So yeah, 2 to the 3rd power is 8. 2 times 2 times 2, right? 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Huh?
I am multitasking.
You're playing Pal World, girl. You're
Exactly.
not.
I could be fighting something. I will still
Fighting
answer
something.
your math.
All right, girl. What is 2 to the 4th power?
No, oh my gosh, 16.
Thank you,
I
girl.
was thinking 6 again.
I'm gonna bleep that out. And
Wow.
yeah, it is in fact 16. Okay. Last time to redeem yourself, girl. What is 2 to the 5th power? 2, 4, 8, 16.
32.
32. Yes, there we go. There we go. Good job. Cat's excited. All right. And you can see here, it is in fact 32. Cool. So what else can you do with Python? So we got addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, and exponent. That's your basic arithmetic stuff. You can make variables. In some languages like C++, you have to say like integer x. You don't have to do that in Python. In Python, it just figures out what the type should be from the right-hand side. So probably the next most important thing is input and output. I've already showed you guys how to print things. I didn't tell you how, but you can just print like hello world like that. And that's oftentimes your very first program in computer science is printing out hello world. It's very sad though. It's very tragic. The world never says hello back. So this is oftentimes people's first program in computer science. I'm not really sure why. It's just tradition. Whenever I install a new development environment, usually the first thing I do is just have it print hello world, just making sure that all the different pieces are installed, that everything works, and stuff like that. So the print function like that will print something. There's kind of a less good way of printing something, which is you can just print X like that, and you can see here it didn't actually print the value, but in some development environments for Python, if you just say X, then it'll print the value of 10. But as you can see, it, if you use like a Python tutor and things like that, it doesn't actually print the value to the screen. You have to use print like that to print the value, and then we get the value of 10. Okay. So how do you read from the keyboard? So there's only a few things in computer science. We're going to go through all of them today. First thing is, of course, thing number one. Let's call it learning point 1. How to make a variable. Okay, and that's how you make a variable. Just give it a variable name X, or it'll give me a variable name. Cat. All right, cat. You give me another variable name. How many cats should we have?
20.
You are destined to like Taylor Swift, girl. All right, what? So print cat. So learning point number 2, how to print a variable. No, Copilot, you don't know what I'm talking about. It is how to algebra. There we go. Yep. And so if we say cat is equal to cat times 2, if cat was 20, girl, and we say cat is equal to cat times 2, how many cats do we have now? 40 is correct. So we print this out here. You can see down here, 40. Cool. Let's terminal down a little bit. So in all of computer science, there's only like 6 things you really have to know. And every time you learn a new programming language, you only have to learn those 6 things. There's always more. Computer science is a 4-year degree, et cetera, et cetera. But whenever I learn a new language, I always start off by saying, how do I make a variable? How to do algebra? How to do input and output? And so learning point, how to print, very close, very close. Chat GPT, no. Copilot, sorry. Microsoft Copilot, Cortana. How to do input and output like that. So you can print something to the screen. How do you get something from the keyboard? You get something from the keyboard by using the input command. So Ada, what should we? Let's ask how many cans of food are we going to feed our cats? How about that?
Just one.
Don't listen to her. Don't listen to her. Here, you want to go on camera, cat? Come here. Oh. Be on camera. Okay. She heard you calling her fat, cat. All right. So, the cat just took off. All right. So let's ask how many cans of food we need to feed our cat. All right, and so we will do this. Cans is equal to input. Thank you, Copilot. Very nice, very nice. Okay, how many cans of cat food do you have? And then we will print cans divided by cats, and that's cat. Sorry, it's called cats. How many cats do you have? It's not just one cat; it's multiple cats. Okay. And then that will print out how many cans of food we have per cat. All right. All right, how many? And then down here you can see how many cans of cat food you have. We have 40 cans of cat food, and so you might notice we got an error here. So you might be like, but you typed in 40. Why can you not divide 40 by 20? And the answer is when you do Python, this is the most common mistake I see my students make. Is whenever you read from the keyboard, you always get something called a string. A string is a word. You can't divide a word by 20. So it's even funnier if you do multiplication, right? So watch what happens if we multiply a word times 4 or something like that. If we run this, how many cans of cat food do you have? 10. What it prints out is 10, 10, 10, 10. Right? It multiplied the string by 4. You can multiply strings, you can't divide strings. You can also add strings together, and like if you add hello and world, you get hello world. So what you have to do if you want a number in Python, cans divided by cats, put that back, is you have to convert it to an integer if you want an integer. And you do that by wrapping this whole input thing here in the word int. Int means convert the number to an integer. Now, if you don't type in an integer, you're going to have a problem, but let's just show it working first. So how many cans of cat food do we have? We have 40. And so, we have 40 cats now, right? A lot of cats. And so we have 1 can of cat food per cat. If we run this again with some key bindings and whatever. Okay. How many cans of cat food? If we have 80 cans of cat food, then that is 2 cans of cat food per cat. And like I said, you just use Python as a simple calculator. And legitimately, like a lot of computer science programs out there are not making the next Instagram. It's not making the next Facebook. It's just like, oh, I just need to do a little bit of math, right? Like you got some business you got going on. I don't know what you guys do, but you need to do like a little estimate, like if somebody's like, I'm going to hire you to blow insulation in your attic. And you're like, all right, well, it costs this much money per square footage of attic space. And they got a height and a width and in, I don't know, a depth of how much insulation. So you do a little Python program, right? You type in the width of the attic, the height of the attic, the depth of the insulation. You charge this much per cubic inch of insulation. Boom, boom, boom. There's your answer. And you don't have to like have this huge production. You don't have to go to graduate school for computer science. You can actually literally learn how to write a program and run it in this amount of time, and you're good. Like you're good. You don't have to do these huge, World of Warcraft projects and things like that. This is all it takes. Okay. So that's how you read from the keyboard. That's how you print to the screen. That's how you do algebra. That's how you make a variable. Have at it. Okay. Next up is a conditional. Okay. So the next thing in computer science, learning point number 4, Copilot, how to do a loop. Close, but wrong. How to do a branch. In other words, how to do a conditional, how to do an if statement. Okay. And so what we can do is say, I'll just leave it up here so it's still grouped in learning point. But oftentimes when somebody types something in, you want to vet the input. You want to make sure the number is correct, or at least plausibly correct. So Ada, is it possible to have negative cans of cat food? Now you're back, huh? Like if I asked you how many cans of cat food we have in the pantry, and you say negative 6,000, is that reasonable?
I mean,
Could be. Yeah. All right. What about if I said I have 3 billion cans of cat food in the pantry? Is that reasonable?
is this an Amazon warehouse or something?
No, it's just our house. Like, could we have 3 billion?
Good.
We could. How big a house do you think we got here?
Well, if we fill up every single room with like those food cans.
3 billion cans is a lot. All right, you're gonna write a Python program to figure out how many cans of cat food we could realistically have in our house.
Those canned foods are not necessarily like large,
Yeah. Okay. After we stop this video, we're gonna write a Python program to see the maximum amount of cans of cat food that could fit into our house. Okay. I'm just gonna say we can't have negative cat food, and the maximum we could have. We owe cat food. It's like the national debt. We got 36 trillion cans of cat food owed to our cat. Should be very happy about that. Okay, so let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to check is if the user typed in a negative amount, right? Like if you have negative cans of cat food, it's probably wrong. So I'm going to say if cans is less than 0, colon. Okay. And print you can't have, yeah, okay, fair enough. Thank you, Copilot. Very cool. And then you can have an else, but you can also do what's called an elif, like this. Elif cans is equal to 0. Cool. You have no cans of cat food. Neat. All right. And then we can also do an elif for if the cans is too many. Like, realistically speaking, I don't think this household could have over 1,000 cans of cat food. It's not bad. Print. You have a lot of cans of cat food. We're going to say you have too many cans of cat food.
I feel like Julia would disagree with that.
She would be very happy if we had over 1,000 cans of cat food. Then else, you have some cans of cat food. You have a normal amount of cat food. There you go. So this is what it looks like to do an if, else block in Python. These 3 parts here are all optional. You can just have an if statement that just checks for negative cat food and then move on with your life. But like I said, usually when I do input, I always kind of check the values and make sure, if you ask somebody what's their height and they type in -5, it's probably wrong. If they typed in squirrel, it's probably wrong. Nobody's height is a furry mammal that falls out of your ceiling, like what happened to us today. So I usually check my values and then do things like ask them again and all this kind of stuff. But for now, we'll just leave it like this. So to go over what we have on the screen here, the first thing we do is we're checking to see if the user typed in a negative number. If they typed in a negative number, we print out error. Can't have negative cans of cat food. If they typed in 0, then you can say you should reorder some cat food. Julia demands it. Okay, so the cat has demanded more cat food. If too much, again, error. The number you typed in here is probably wrong, unless, like my daughter said, you're working in an Amazon warehouse or something like that. So like I said, a lot of these programs you just make it for your own house, your own business, and you know your own limits. You can always change them. Like if you end up stocking up for the apocalypse and want to have more than 1,000 cans of cat food, you can change that number. It's fine. But I always check my input because I don't trust anybody to type in the right number. Not even myself. Like I'll fat finger something and hit an extra 0 or something all the time. And so always check your input. Make sure the numbers are reasonable. But like I don't need to say anything if it's a normal can of cat food, so I can actually just erase the else block if I want. But I'm leaving it in here just to show you guys. So what will happen if the user types in a negative amount? It's going to print this out. If they type in 0, it's going to print that out. If they type in a number over 1,000, it prints that out. Otherwise, and that's what else means. Else means otherwise. If none of the above are true, then it will do this one. And so it will definitely print one of 4 different things every time. Like I said, it's optional. Like a lot of times, if something's correct, I just silently accept it and move on with the program. It's like if I was writing this for realsies, I'd probably take out that else block and just be like, all right, cool. You've entered the cans. Now, move on with, whatever. Do a calorie calculator for the cat, something like that. Where'd the cat go? Oh, just staring out the window right now. Okay. So those are branches, and that's where all of the intelligence in your computer science program comes from. All of the intelligence comes from if statements. Because if you didn't have any if statements, your program would just run down the line same way every time. It was fine for something like a calculator. Enter the height of the attic, enter the width of the attic, enter the depth of the insulation you're blowing, enter the cost per cubic inch or whatever of insulation. Print out, here's the estimate of the cost to blow insulation in your attic. You do that, but there's no intelligence in it, right? It's not doing anything different. It's doing the same thing every time. Okay? So if you want your program to behave differently, to react to user input, things like that, you need if statements. Okay, next thing, computer science. Learning point number 5, how to do a loop. Good job, Cortana, Copilot, whatever. For iron range 0 to cans, it's going to print I have cans of cat food over and over again. That's an interesting choice, Copilot there. So if the user types in I have 10 cans of cat food, it's going to print I have 10 cans of cat food 10 times, which is doesn't make a lot of sense to me. How many cans of cat food do you have? So let's say I have 5 cans of cat food, and so you can see it prints out I have cans of cat food 5 times, and it starts at 0 and it goes to 1 less than the number typed in here. And you actually don't need to do that exactly. You can do this and food here, and you can see that works just as well. So if you leave off the first part of the range, it'll default to 0. So range 0 to 5 means, okay, so backing up a little bit, a loop means to do something repeatedly. And so if you want to do something 10 times, you use a loop. And instead of copying and pasting, because you could do this, and I have seen students do this, by the way. And they're like, look, I printed it out 10 times. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. It's a terrible code. Okay, so if you want to repeat yourself without repeating yourself, like copying and pasting it, use loop. And the syntax for it, there's a couple different ways of doing it. If you want an infinite loop, you can just say while true, like that, and then I have cans of cat food, and if you do this, this is going to be an infinite loop. So how many cans of cat food do you have? You ready? You ready? You ready? Woo! Infinite loop. So you can see here, I'm scrolling up, I'm scrolling up, I'm scrolling up, I'm scrolling up, I'm scrolling up. That's a lot of cans of cat food that it prints. So while true is an infinite loop. Oftentimes you don't want an infinite loop in computer science, but like if you're making something like a game, then it's very common for you to do an infinite loop. And then if the user ever clicks quit, then it quits the program, which breaks you out of the infinite loop. Use a for loop when you know how many times you want to do something. I want to do something 10 times. I want to do something 20 times. Use for loop. While true loop just means keep running until the user breaks out of it or quits or something like that. Okay, so what this means is it creates a variable named I, and I, the first time through the loop, will be set to 0. Then it's going to print out I have cans of cat food. And then the next time through the loop, it'll print out, sorry, put the I back in here. Next time through the loop, I will be 1. And it'll print out I have 1 cans, bad grammar, of cat food. Next time through the loop, I is 2. And it stops when I is equal to cans. So if cans was 5, it's going to loop 5 times, but it starts at 0. And so it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's another mistake that people make. It's called a fence post error, because if you have 5 fence posts, you have 4 sections of fence between them. Does that make sense, Ada? If you have 5 fence posts, if you have 2 fence posts, you have 1 section of fence, right? If you have 3 fence posts, you have 2 sections of fence. Make sense? So it's also called an off by 1 error. So a lot of times people think this is going to go up to 5 if I type 5 in, but I'll run it one more time here. If I have 5 cans cat food, it's going to go from 0 to 4. So it runs 5 times, but it goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't go up to 5. Okay. Common mistake in computer science. That off by 1 error. Okay, so there you go. That's how you do something repeatedly. That's how you repeat yourself without repeating yourself. Copy and paste, in other words. There you go. So that's... if you go into an infinite loop, like I did earlier there, while true, go into an infinite loop and you get stuck, don't be like my friends that would just turn off their computer. That's very excessive for this. What you do is you hit Control C. Control C is cancel. And so if I type in 10 here, oh, I doesn't exist. This is not going to work. How many cans cat food? We got 10 cans cat food. So when it's in an infinite loop and it's going forever and it's not responding to you, Control C, and that cancels the infinite loop. Okay? Just so you know, it's a safety measure. You don't want to be like my friends. Like, I don't know what to do, man. They try closing out of it. It's not responding, so they just turn their computer off. Control delete. Control C. Control C cancels. Okay. I'll write that down here. Control C cancels the loop. There you go. Thanks. You're cool. Hey, kitty. Sorry for calling you fat earlier. All right. It's Ada, but you know, I'm taking credit for it. Little plump. All right. So that's how you do a for loop. That's how you repeat yourself. There's only one thing remaining in computer science that matters. And that is something called a function. Okay. And so a function, hey, look at that. Copilot knows where the direction we're going here. All right. So a function is a repeatable block of code. So if you remember algebra, the y is equal to mx plus b, that's a function. Or f of x equals, you know, let's just do something here. Let's define a function called shiny Kativa.
I also found a shiny, what the heck? It's doing like a Kamehameha thing. Oh, no, stop.
Exciting.
No, it was
all
right.
right.
It was right. It was
Calorie.
right next to my farm. So all the other people thought that it was attacking me, like it was actually harming me, and it was like level 4, and it killed it. It killed that 1 in 2,000 rare Kativa. What the heck?
Okay. You could be learning Python, girl, instead of Palworld, just saying. All right, so let's figure out how many calories we have in our pantry per cat. So this function here is going to take in 2 parameters. Do you guys remember algebra where you have like f of x is equal to like, you know, 10x plus 5, you know, this kind of stuff. In Python, you would write it like that. So you pass in a value you pass in a value like f of 5, x becomes 5, it does some computations, and it returns a value back out. So if we had, let's just show you how to do this in Python, define f of x, it's 10x plus 5. So if you pass in the value of 2, it's going to return back the value of 25, right? Because 10 times 2 is 20, plus 5 is 25. And so you can just make whatever functions you want, and then this allows you to reuse code, so you don't repeat yourself. Ada, you need me to say that again? Don't repeat yourself. Do you need me to say it again? Don't repeat yourself. Daddy, why do you always make dad jokes? It's in the name, girl. Okay, so this is how you make a function in Python. You say def. Def means define a function. And this is the name of the function. In this case, f, the most generic function name possible. And in this case, the name of the function is calories per cat. And so we're going to compute how many calories we have available based on the number of cans we have in our pantry and the number of cats we have in the house. So how many calories is in a can of cat food? That's actually the question. How many calories in a can of cat food? Alright, Frisky's cat food. Alright, just tell me. 112. Great. Alright. So 112 times the number of cans we have divided by the number of cats, and there we go. So that'll tell us the amount of calories we have in our pantry for the cats we have in our household. So let's come over here and say print calories per cat, cans, cats. Sure. Okay. So we run this again. How many cans of cat food? We have 100 cans of cat food in our pantry. And we still got the loop in there. Okay, whatever. So the total amount, and we've got, what do we have, like 40 cats. We've got 100 cans of cat food. We got 40 cats. Each can of cat food has 112 calories. And so apparently the answer is 280 calories per cat available. So how many calories does a cat need per day? How many calories does a cat need per day? Cat calorie calculator. All right. Cat's name. You need to know my cat's name. It's called Bob. Cat's weight. 11.
Are you putting Bob in fear that they will track down?
Exactly. Exactly.
Steal her information.
Exactly. See results. Body condition.
Chunky.
A little chunky. Yeah, okay. All right, 158 kilocalories per day. So they should eat 1.6 cans of cat food per day. All right. So you see how this thing here was probably made by a calculator very similar to what we just did right there. So the cat needs 158 kilocalories per day, and so we can, for example, compute how many days of cat food we have remaining in our pantry. And so we can print out, let's see, days remaining is equal to calories per cat, cans, cats, divided by 156 kcal per day. And you can see how we can actually call this function repeatedly, right? We can print the calories per cats we have remaining. We can then use it again and divide it by the semicolon. We can divide it by the, you could even make a variable for that. Cat calories days equal 156 calories per day, like that. And then we can just print out the days remaining, like that. And then that'll tell us how many, like, you know, if like there's a blizzard coming in and we want to know, like, do we have enough cat food to make it through the blizzard? Then we can punch in the number of cats we have. We can punch in the number of cans of food we have, and it'll tell us, like, you got, you know, this many days of food remaining for your cats before you have to start feeding them people. Daughter didn't hear that. All right. So we've got 500 cans of cat food. We're stocked up for the wintertime. And so I need to take out that loop. Whatever, I'm leaving the loop in. Okay, whatever. It printed out, I have cans of cat food 500 times. So we have 1,400 calories per cat. So we got quite a lot of calories available per cat. If cats consume 156 calories per day, then we have about 9 days worth of food. Even with 500 cans of cat food, those 40 chunky beasts are going to be consuming those cans of cat food very quickly. And we only have 9 days of food, actually. Even though it looks like we've got 500 in our pantry, we've got 9 days of food available. So I think the only solution here is to get rid of some of the cats. So let's cut the number of cats down to 6. How about that? So we'll start with 3 cats. They bred. They now have 6 cats. They multiplied. Let's see how much. We have 500 cans of cat food now for 6 cats instead of 40. Let's see how long that's going to last. So that's going to last 60 days. 59 point, whatever. So we got 60 days of food. If our pantry is completely full of cat food, we got 6 cats. Blizzard comes in. As long as the blizzard doesn't last 2 months, we'll be fine. And so that is really, all there is to Python. There's only these 6 things that are important. You can go into like classes and lists and dictionaries and all this other stuff, but this is really the basics of Python. You need to know how to make variables. You need to do algebra. You need to know how to do input and output, read from the keyboard, print to the screen. You need to know how to do some if statements, some branches in there. So, checking input, or you can say, if the cat's name is Julii, then increase the calorie requirement. You could ask, what's your cat's name? And, oh, it's Julii. She's a chonky one. Just perched on my computer. Looping, you can do things repeatedly, and then you make functions, and then you can reuse the functions like this. So def defines a function. That's the name of the function. In the parentheses here are the parameters that it takes. In this case, it takes 2 parameters, cans and cats. In this one, it takes 1 parameter named x. It doesn't technically have to take any parameters. I could define a function named... Ada, give me a name. Julii. And that doesn't have to take any. You could just return the value of 156. Like that. And Julii, like that. And then, it'll return Julii's pre-computed calories per day count. She's called Julii because we found her on the 4th of July. And is Jules, like in Pulp Fiction. Yeah. So you just make a function like that. It doesn't have to have any parameters if you don't want it. So it just has a name, open close parentheses. The colon's important. In Python, you might notice that Visual Studio Code was indenting for me automatically. It's important in Python for you to have exactly 4 spaces, no more, no less. The counting shall be 4. If you try deleting one of these things, then Python's going to get mad at you. Let's see, run that. It didn't get mad at me. Interesting. What's wrong? Come on, Python. Come on. There you go. Okay. So, fix using Copilot. Problem is, return same is... okay. Sure. Okay. So, yeah. In Python, you're supposed to have exactly 4 spaces when you're indented. And then if you have another level of indentation in there, like if true, whatever, then it indents another level. And then your code's going to be wrong until you indent it correctly. So you have to have exactly 4 spaces. If you hit tab on Visual Studio Code, it puts 4 spaces in for you. Like if you click on this, you'll see that those are actually spaces in there, not the tab character. And then if you take something out, then the indentation is broken again. So you need to delete the extra spaces that you have there. It's one of the annoying things about Python. Probably the most common error is a white space error. You don't have enough or too many spaces. So that makes a function. Name is Julii, takes no parameters. Yes, I'm talking about you. She's glowering at me. And then it returns 156. And then if you call a function, you just do it like this. So you type in the name of the function, open close parentheses, because it takes no parameters. If it does take a parameter, like, I don't know, say Bob is equal to f of 10, like that, then you put the parameters inside of the parentheses, just like in algebra. That passes 10 to the function named f, right up here. Then it does a little bit of math. 10 times 10 is 100, plus 5 is 105. So if we print the value of Bob over here, B-O-B, like that, then you can see that Bob prints out 105 because we passed in 10. It does, goes up here. 10 times 10 is 100 plus 5, 105. Prints it out. Just like that. That's it. That's all there is for the basics of Python. There's more. To go on from here, you should learn lists and dictionaries and classes and all this other stuff. But this is the basics of not just Python, but every programming language. Like when I learned C, when I learned Java, when I learned R, the first thing I always ask is how do I make a variable? How do I do algebra? How do I do input and output? How do you do branch? How do I do a loop? How do I do a function? And once I got that, it's like, all right, I got the basics. Now I want to learn, now I got the basics. Now I'll learn whatever makes this language special. Like what's special about R? It's all this cool data processing and graphing stuff. And what's cool about Python? There's like NumPy, pandas, and all this kind of data science stuff. And what's cool about Java? I don't know. I'm kidding. But that's the basics of computer science. And with that, peace. Practice. Good. You. Ada. Practice. Yeah.